Hi, Whitney.
Hi, Abby. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing well. Long time no see.
I know, but luckily we did get to see each other in person a couple times, which is always fun because I don't always get to meet my podcast guests in
I
person.
know, and we had a great time just catching up.
We did. We did. So there's so much I want to get into with you. Can we start with The Bachelor? I
Of
mean,
course, most people like
obviously.
starting there.
I know. How does that make you feel at this point in your life, honestly?
You know what? I'm number one, I'm accustomed to it, but also it just seems like a lifetime ago. I mean, that was
Mhm.
10 years ago. It
Yeah.
almost feels like that was some days I'll say a dream, sometimes I'll say a nightmare, but just like it
Yeah.
was so long ago, I'm such a different person so far removed. But I also understand just the curiosity surrounding it. And I myself would be the exact same way. So I'm always happy to start on the Bachelor topic.
Well, I mean, I think what everyone always wants to know is how did you even, because I think sometimes we dream about like, oh my God, I want to be on The Bachelor, I want to be a bachelorette. And then actually doing it is a whole different story. It's intense. The hours are insane. I mean, you won, spoiler alert. So like, and your life changed obviously so significantly and then changed again, which we'll get into. But like, what is it like in reality? What made you want to do it?
That's a really good question, one I ask myself a lot. And I think just kind of what you said, it was something that you watch and you're like, oh, I want to be on that show. And, it became this, thing with girlfriends where, oh, Whitney, you should sign up. You should sign up. And we were like, okay, they were coming to Chicago, when they would air and they would say, oh, do you know somebody or do you want to be the next bachelor or bachelorette? We will be in your city. And they were coming to Chicago and we thought, oh, heck, let's just do it. And then we went, and then the next thing I know, I made it to the next stage. So then you're like, okay, well, I might as well just go for it. I mean, what are
Wait,
the odds?
pause, pause, pause. Like, what did they ask you? How did you even get there? Like, I need all the details. And also, were your girlfriends like, Whitney, you should go? Was that specific to you, or were you all like, we should all
I
go?
So they're out of the group that we would have our dip parties where we all made a dip on Monday nights and we would just
So
chip and
cute.
dip party with wine. There was myself and one other gal that were single. Everybody else was married. So it was, specific to the two of us. And my other girlfriend was like, there is no chance in hell I would ever sign up, but I would be a great supporter and I will go with you. So we went and it was like nothing I ever expected when we went, to be quite honest. I mean, we pulled up and there were so many, I mean, I say girls because I feel like we were so young going into this. Some girls dressed up like absolute beauty queens, and I was in jeans and a tank top. I felt so out of place.
Mm.
Um, and I wanted to turn around and just say this was going to be a good story. We came, we saw, we left. But my girlfriend was like, "Come on, we just got to let's just go up there. It's like you said, it's a good story. Let's go for it." So we went in, it was like this big ballroom, and you had to wait in line, and you wrote your name and your phone number on this whiteboard, and you had to stand and get your picture taken with that. And then you had to fill out this, oh my gosh, this packet of information. And one of the funniest stories, I actually haven't shared this a lot because a lot of people don't ask me the details of the kind of audition. But I sat down and was filling out that paperwork. I mean, it was like probably 30 pages, and I had my legs crossed. And when I stood up to go turn it in, my foot had fallen asleep and I fell in the middle of
Oh
this
my
ballroom.
God. You're like
How
mortified.
embarrassing. How
Yeah.
embarrassing. But yeah, so we were just waiting for our names to be called, and then we did like mock interviews. And this gal, before I even did my interview, pulled me off to the side and was like, come with me. And I was kind of scurried to the front of the line. I have no idea why. Maybe it's because I was the only one wearing just normal clothes. I don't
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
And then from there, they pulled me into this back room where there were all of these producers, and they said, here's another packet of information. Get this, it was a Saturday, get this to us by Monday, and we'll be in touch. So that's how it all started.
And you did the farmer season.
I did.
What did you know that going in?
I think I knew.
Because I'm thinking jeans and t-shirt. Maybe they were like, she
Yeah,
would look
I
well
don't
good
think
with the
I
farmer.
knew for sure. I think it was speculated that it was either going to be the farmer or the race car driver, Ari.
Okay.
One of the two.
So you go, okay, your life is at this point, you're a nurse
Yep. I'm working at a
already,
fertility clinic. Yep.
and they came to your office.
They did. So once I was casted, so after that specific weekend, they flew me out to LA and there was a whole nother round from that. And then from there, they confirmed who was going to be casted. So once I was confirmed casted, they reached out and said, hey, we're very fascinated about the work that you do. Could we do a package? You know, kind of leading into getting to know the girls, could we do that and kind of showcase your work? And I was ecstatic to do it.
Yeah. How was your fertility clinic about it?
Oh man, that is a story for another day, which I
Sure.
totally understand why there would be hesitancy, just because, I mean, it's a reality TV show. They can
Sure.
edit anything to make you look any way you want. And at that point, we hadn't even started filming the show yet. So
Right.
who knows? I mean, we were all kind of at their own mercy in terms of how they were going to edit us. I mean, you can be the most normal person and still be made out to be the villain. So um they took a chance, on me and we were able to do it, but there were definitely some hesitancies and some questions, which I totally understand.
Amazing. I just like, as the perspective of fertility patient, I can't even imagine what it would have been like to see my fertility nurse on The Bachelor. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Oh my gosh, yes.
In a great way, you know? I mean, I love that they did it. So then, like, had they said to you, okay, when you get this, if you get this, you have to clear X amount of time and clear it from work and take, like, how did that piece of it work? How did you stop your life to go film this show?
So I was very transparent with my employer at the time about the fact that I was signing up. And, there were so many what ifs at the time. Um, I didn't even know if I would be casted. And then once I was casted, I could be gone for a week or I could be gone for 3 months.
Right.
So they were so supportive and, of me taking this chance. And I think that is part of the reason I was able to do it. Because if they said, no, we can't hold your job for you, there's no way I could have, as a single gal in the city, taken that long or taken a chance to not have a job when I came back to go on a television show.
Amazing. Okay, so let's pause there in terms of the show, and we'll go back to it. But so they probably did this because they loved you because you were a killer fertility nurse. How did you end up in this field?
Oh gosh, it is something that kind of fell in my lap in such a serendipitous sort of way. I never knew that I wanted to be a fertility nurse. I also didn't even know that fertility nurses existed.
Mm,
Um, back in the early 2000s when I was in nursing school, nobody was talking about fertility. It was all, we're talking about obstetrics, but no one talked about the struggles to stay pregnant. And that wasn't something that I even knew existed until I was well out of nursing school and realizing that um, being in the hustle and the bustle and what I thought I wanted to be in the cardiac ICU was not going to be for me. I was taking way too much of that home, leaving and having someone like the hospital or leaving a shift and having someone, pass on your clock and on your watch, which happened, unfortunately, I don't want to say a ton, but it happened often
sure,
enough.
cardiac ICU, of course.
And I just couldn't, it was too much for me. And I was having this thought in my mind, why did I become a nurse? Why did I make this decision? Like, oh my gosh, here I am. I went to school for this and now I'm second guessing everything. And so I really had to have a moment, internally with myself. Um, and I was feeling very lost at the time. I mean, my mom had passed away not too long before, and she was my only parent. My father's never been in the picture, and I felt like I was on my own, like I had never been. I didn't have anybody to sort of bounce off. I mean, I had my sister, but it was just different when you don't have a parental figure to really guide you. And so it was a very big life-changing moment for me. And I started diving deep about, well, what do I like? What would be a dream job? And I saw an advertisement for a fertility nurse. And I thought, well, this is something I've never even thought of. We didn't even touch upon this in nursing school.
Mm,
But I decided to apply. You did have to have so many years of experience in women's health. And here I was, somewhat of a new grad, and all of my experience was in the cardiac ICU. So
mm.
I felt like it was pretty much, a shot in the dark for me to even attempt it,
Yeah.
but I got the job. And from there, I really fell into my niche where I really felt I needed to be. And I've never looked back from fertility at that point. So that was in 2008.
So your mom never got to see you be on The Bachelor, right? She
Oh,
passed. Okay.
inheritance.
Also, like I want to say that there's a known, the statistic is very high. I think it's like over 60% of women won't apply for a job if they don't think they meet 100% of the criteria. So I'm really glad it's like a great example of like, I'm just going to take this shot in the dark and then you got it.
I mean, just go for it, right?
Yes, just go for it. Okay, so let's go back to The Bachelor. So you win.
If
And
you
what do
want to
you,
call it that, I guess.
right. In the moment you won.
Yes, I got that final
You
rose.
got the final rose. What did you tell work? Are you like, I mean, because it's all still confidential, right?
It it is, but I feel like so much of it was leaked and I had been gone for so long. I mean, yes, like I had signed NDAs, I couldn't necessarily share too much, but at the same time, my hometown had been displayed at work. So they knew I made
Right.
it at least that far. And so I came back and I tried to just get right back into the swing of things. And that was hard.
Mm,
That was hard after being gone, knowing that, oh my gosh, I just got engaged on national television. No one really knows. People may speculate, but it's going to be for the whole world to know. And here I am just going back to my 9 to 5, like nothing ever happened, like I didn't skip a beat.
right.
That
And
was tough.
where was the fiance at that point?
In Iowa.
Okay. Because then
Hmm.
eventually you guys went back out to LA, right?
Yes, because he
Okay.
was on Dancing with the Stars. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Dancing with the Stars. Okay. So did you quit your job at that point?
I ultimately decided that, I mean, there was just too much back and forth, and
Yeah.
I had an honest conversation with my employer. Like this was not going to be working for them or for me in terms of all
Right.
the travel that I was doing. So that is, I was able to kind of transition my roles,
Hmm.
which, by the way, Abby, let's not talk about that piece of it. Just edit this part out. Transition my roles and still work, but not in the office.
Got it. Um, so you come out to LA.
Yep.
You're supporting your man doing Dancing with the Stars, and things take a turn,
Yes.
and you find yourself now in a different job, or rather, you find yourself now having left your work,
Hmm.
having decided this isn't going to be your forever life partner. What do you do?
That was a very dark time in my life. Very
Mm.
dark time in my life. Um, my whole life was put on display. And yes, I absolutely signed up for it. And I myself sometimes was like, Whitney, well, what did you expect? You went on a national television show. People are going to have opinions about what you do and how you do it and all of the things. Um, and it was a dark time. I mean, there's really no way to sugarcoat it. I mean,
Yeah.
I really just wanted to shut my eyes, rewind, and made a different decision to even go on the show. I really wished I could at that time because it was isolating. I just wanted to go back to being normal, quote unquote normal.
Hmm.
And that was tough, but I ended up going back to Chicago and continued working and was able to really kind of dive in and focus on that full-heartedly and was able to at that point with the platform that I did have start sharing my story about raising my eggs that I had done even before I had gone on the show.
And had you spoken about your egg freeze on the show? I don't remember.
Not at that time.
Okay.
Admittedly very nervous to share at that point just because everyone, as I mentioned, had an opinion
Yeah.
and it was not something that was fully talked about and I didn't know how it was going to be received. And there was some parts of me that was nervous to share that.
Hmm.
So at the beginning, I didn't know when or if I would share.
Hmm. Okay. So I mean, that's great. In the back of your head, you're like, at least I did this thing. I
Hmm.
froze my eggs. It's just a
Yes,
nice thing. And look, we both know it's not a guaranteed insurance policy,
right.
but I feel like it takes a little bit of the pressure off, especially in that dark time for you.
Absolutely. And I mean, I will even say that when we were freezing, oh my goodness, when we were filming the show,
Yeah.
uh, so much of your time on the show is off camera. And we would talk a lot, the girls, the relationships that you build with these women. And we talk about our dreams, our aspirations, what we were doing before this, what our hopes are after that. And it was almost like our lives were sort of paused at that moment. Like everything from that point forward was going to be before the show or after the show. But for me, talking about freezing my eggs and my career was a hot topic for a lot of the women. And I loved talking about it. So even though I wasn't sure I wanted to publicly come out and talk about it at that time, which ultimately I did end up doing that, I was still very open about discussing it with the other women, and really educating them on their bodies because so many women don't know how our bodies work.
Yeah. Which is like full circle. We'll get back to that piece at the end. Okay. So, and how did you ultimately meet your current husband?
Bumble.
I love it. I love it so much. How long did you take to like have some time off and time alone post breakup?
Not long, to be
Because you
quite honest.
knew you were just like, I know that was not for me.
Yeah, so what things were, we called it quits, I would say shortly thereafter. Um, and I, had my pity party for myself and then
Good.
dusted myself off and was like, all right, I'm ready to get back out there. And that was probably 3 months, 3 or 4 months after the breakup.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
and you jumped right into Bumble.
I did. Because why not? I mean, I was not going out a ton at that time just because my life was still, very public and I just would have much rather not put myself in those sort of situations. It was very anxiety provoking to me.
Hmm.
So I thought, well, I can just, sign up for an app. And I liked Bumble because the woman had a little bit more control with that one because the
Hmm.
woman had to initiate the conversation.
Okay. So you meet your hubs.
Hmm.
Fast forward, he becomes your hubs.
Hmm.
Did he know that you had been on The Bachelor?
He did. I mean, it was not something that we talked about,
Uh-huh.
on that first date.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I really enjoyed was it felt so normal. It just
Hmm.
felt easy. But ultimately down the line we chatted about it and I don't even think I asked him, but somebody asked him in my presence and he's like, yeah, I did. I mean, I had seen the show. I wasn't, a religious watcher. Maybe he was. I
Yeah.
mean, telling
Right.
me, but he's like, yeah, I didn't know who she was.
Okay. So let's get into your fertility journey then. I guess when you met your husband, did you get right into, because like we do, right? At a certain point, you're like, if this is the person I'm gonna spend my life with, we talk about kids, hopefully.
Yes.
Were you like, great news, I froze my eggs?
Feel that at that point it had become public and I had spoken about my decision to freeze my eggs and had other cast members also come out and speak on it. So it was public knowledge. And so I don't know that I said, surprise, I froze my eggs, but I think it was just a normal part of conversation, just in terms of my work as well.
Sure. And how soon into marriage did you think at the time at least that you wanted to try to start having kids?
Oh my gosh, I was ready almost immediately. I
Yeah.
mean, we decided we were going to, enjoy being newlyweds. We took a little bit of a delayed honeymoon, but we were ready within the year to start trying for a baby.
And how did that go for you?
Not as quick as I wanted it to go.
Yeah.
And that's how that happens. I mean, even though I knew the chances of getting pregnant each month were against me, as they are
Right.
for all women.
Right.
I just assumed I would be different.
Sure. I think we all do, right? This isn't
Yes.
going to be me. This isn't going to be my story,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So interesting. So you wanted it to happen and
Happening as quickly as I wanted. So I thought, okay, well, let's see, how old was I at the time? Probably like 33. Yeah. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm going to use my eggs.
mhm.
And I reached out to the fertility clinic and the physician that I was working with and said, I think I should do it. And he counseled me how he should have in terms of Whitney. take a step back. You know the answer to this, but I'm going to tell you, you are young. It can take up to a year. And save those eggs. Save your precious eggs because I froze my eggs when I was 27. If you
Mm.
want to have more children in the future, you may need them down the line. Let's just, continue with the plan, try naturally. And if after a year you still have not conceived, then we can talk about this. And even though I knew that, I still needed to hear that because
And you were willing to listen to him because I
I
think
was
some of
willing
us
to
don't.
him. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. So you gave it the full year. You gave it less than a year. What happened?
Less than a year. I mean, shortly after that, we were
Yeah.
pregnant. Yeah.
Good. So you're like, thank goodness I mean, look, it would have, no matter what, but I'm glad he
Yeah.
counseled you that way. And your first pregnancy was generally uneventful, right?
Uneventful. And yes, our son, my son Hayes, or our son.
Yeah. You're like, my husband was kind
Yeah,
of
but me,
there.
yes.
Yeah.
Our son Hayes was born on the anniversary of my mom's passing, actually. And so that was a full circle moment. But he just started first grade yesterday. So he's 6 years old. Yeah.
We share that. Our kids are the same age. Okay, so great. You're like, now let's go for number two. Gonna be easy again. And if not, at least I have my frozen eggs.
Yeah, well, I mean, and even before that, I will say something that I always want to give as a PSA to women. I was having some chest pain. I was probably 4 months postpartum, and I was traveling at the time, and I thought to myself, "Oh my gosh, I'm having this chest pain. I'm had a baby 4 months ago. My mom died of blood clot, and I've just been on an airplane. Oh my gosh, I'm so I ended up going to the ER. They ruled out any sort of blood clot. Didn't really know why I was having the chest pain. Gave me, some anti-inflammatories and sent me on my way. I ended up following up with my primary care and would have these strange episodes of chest pain on and off over a year that were dismissed and shelved and tabled. And I was just told it's anxiety, it's this, it's that. Until a year later, we were vacationing in Cape Cod, and the pain became so unbelievably bad that I ended back at Cape Cod Hospital, and they found that I had 3.5 cups of fluid around my heart, and I was in cardiac tamponade, which is a fatal um, condition when you have pressure kind of pushing in on your heart. And I had to have an emergency procedure to have that fluid drained. And come to find out, for the prior year, I had viral pericarditis that was undetected because people weren't listening to me.
Mm.
And so, how that leads into the second pregnancy is that it took a very long time because the infection had gotten so bad, and the inflammation around my heart, the pericardium, had gotten so bad. It was very difficult to get it under control. And so I was put on very high doses of medications and medications that were not conducive for pregnancy.
Mm.
So we were ready as a family to start trying for baby number two, but I was not given the clearance. And they did not know if I would ever receive the clearance to have a baby. I mean, we know that pregnancy with, the extra amount of blood flow and the pressure and the strain it can go on your heart, it was something that they didn't know that my heart would be strong enough to do. And so that's when we thought, all right, maybe we're going to need a surrogate, but before we even go down that path, we should check in on these eggs because the eggs were frozen in 2013. And while the science was still good, it wasn't as good as it could have been. It
Right.
was still early on.
Hmm.
And so I thought to myself, all right, I know that I want to thaw these eggs and attempt to fertilize them because gosh forbid they're not good and I need to do another retrieval. I would rather do it now when I'm younger versus waiting. And the physicians were okay with me going through a stimulation cycle. So that is when we said, all right, we've got the eggs. Let's take a look and see what's going on.
Wow. Thank God you knew all of this. Think about, I mean, we're so lucky to have access to this information. So many women don't.
Mhm.
So you thaw them, and how does the thaw go? Were you
The
prepared in that moment theoretically? As you were thawing, you were prepared for your husband to fertilize them same
Yes.
time.
Yes. So
Okay.
we were prepared for that. And I
Not
was
that he
also,
has to prepare very much, but
I know,
whatever.
right? But I was also preparing myself that they may not be good. I was hopeful because I was so young when I did it, being 27 years old, but who knows what was going to happen. So I think at that time, so I had frozen 15, and I believe 13 of them survived the thaw.
Hmm.
And out of the 13, 10 of them fertilized, and I believe 8 of them were sent for testing. So amazing,
Amazing. Yeah,
absolutely amazing.
great.
Um, And we did do the testing, not because I felt like we had to, but at that point, I just wanted to take advantage of any sort of technology, if, especially if we were going to have to use a surrogate, that's extremely expensive, to reduce that risk of a possible miscarriage. And I knew that they likely, just considering I was 27, that the likelihood of them being genetically normal was high, but it was still a decision that we decided that we wanted to make. And I feel like that is important. Some people, may not have the means to do, the genetic testing, and it's not always necessary when the woman is younger, but that is something that we ultimately decided to do.
And you were doing this at the clinic where you had worked?
Yes.
So you felt
Yes.
that must have felt so
Yeah.
comforting. I love that.
Yes.
Okay, so you're tending to your heart literally, and you're procreating in a lab literally. And what happened to make you all of a sudden cleared?
So I was sent to Mayo and I was followed by a wonderful cardiologist there. And it took probably 12 to 18 months before we were able to get everything under control. And he was like, I think that you're fine. Your heart looks fine. I think you're fine to carry a pregnancy. We had kind of been waiting for that. Do I get the go ahead to carry? Because ultimately that was our first decision, or are we
Right.
going to need to go down the surrogacy path? But I got the clearance to proceed. So at that point, we thought, do we try naturally, or we have these embryos? And for us, we were like, let's just go with an embryo. So
Hmm.
we started to prepare for a frozen embryo transfer. And unfortunately, it failed. It did not work. Um, which again, I know that that happens, but I thought I would be the exception to the rule.
Of course. Everyone's good thinks they're going to be on the right side of the statistic.
Mhm. Yep. Um, and so at that point, I needed a little bit of a break
Hmm.
mentally
Hmm.
because in my mind and in my heart, literally and figuratively, I have been trying to, am I going to be able to have a baby? Are we going to be able, are we going to use a surrogate? Are we not? Is the transfer going to work? The transfer didn't work. What are our next steps going to be? And I was exhausted. I was exhausted. I mean, and on top of that, just the having that very life-threatening condition, your whole life kind of flashes before your eyes. I had a little kid at home when all this was happening, and my trust in the healthcare system, it was all just, yeah, I needed to take a beat. And so we took some time that we'll try naturally. If it happens, it happens. If not, we have more embryos that we can work with. And we were happy, that we had them. It
Hmm.
was that reassurance that we needed. But ultimately, miscarriage, ectopic.
Mm.
Um, so we were prepared.
All
Okay,
with frozen embryo transfers or some
so
natural, some okay, some
all
with
of this is
all
natural.
those were natural. Got it. Okay.
And so we thought, all right, we've got the embryos. Let's go to use them. And that last month is when I found out I was pregnant naturally.
Oh my God. Post ectopic.
Yes.
Now, can we get into your ectopic before we get into the amazing news? Like, how were they monitoring you closely already? Because a lot of times with ectopics, if you tried naturally, you don't realize it's happening till very late.
Correct. So I had what I thought was a biochemical pregnancy. I had gotten a positive pregnancy test and then I got my period. So I was planning that we were going to be preparing for a frozen embryo transfer. And what happened after that? I believe I was waiting, I was going to do a cycle check or something because we
Hmm.
were going to do like a cycle day 21 Lupron start.
Hmm.
So it was probably 3 weeks after I'd gotten my period. I went in for that and I had a very elevated HCG.
Mm.
And I knew right away, this is not good. It's been so long. I mean, not so long, but in the grand scheme of HCG testing and doubling and things of that nature, if it was a biochemical at that point, it should have gone down to zero. So the
Hmm.
fact that it was as elevated as it was, I was like, I felt confident that it was Something was wrong. I was very suspicious of an ectopic, but the interesting thing is that my progesterone level was elevated, and you don't really see that with ectopics.
Hmm.
Typically, your progesterone is lower. So I kept having the levels repeated, and they were doubling. But I just knew this is not, I mean, the period that I had, all of that. So ended up having, I think it was my OB-GYN at the time said, I think it was like a Friday afternoon when I got some labs back, and she said, I think you should just go to the ER because this doesn't really seem right. So I go to the ER, they do a scan, they don't see anything. My lining is so, so, so thin.
Mm.
They keep saying, well, your level looks good. You're pregnant. It's just probably not showing until later, yada yada. So
So it's like, again, you're fighting the medical system.
yes, yes.
Ay, 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 this is traumatic.
It really is. And I think it kind of all comes full circle, but to all the people listening, you have to advocate for yourself. And it's so scary because I knew the questions to ask. So many people don't because they're trusting in the system. And it's a scary place because it ultimately was an ectopic.
Mm,
And the reason I feel like we were able to find it was because I knew something in my gut was wrong. I was following up with my obstetrician and my gynecologist, who I love and adored, and she listened to me.
hmm
I feel like also, even if you have an obstetrician or gynecologist or an REI or whoever your doctor is, your primary care, is if you have this gut feeling or you feel like it's just not a good fit, it's likely not.
hmm
You know,
Right.
my OB is so wonderful. She was listening to me, she heard me, and I was very adamant that I wanted to do an early scan, and she allowed it,
Mm,
and we did end up seeing the ectopic.
mm,
And so was treated with methotrexate, the whole 9 yards, and ended up having to be, it was a long story how that ended up happening too. So ended up having to be in the hospital with bleeding and all of that. It worked out fine, but I
hmm
keep thinking, what if? What if it
hmm
had gone that way?
And was there any concern with methotrexate and whatever was going on in your heart?
At that point, no.
Okay.
But that's a good question. I mean, it was something that we did reach out to the cardiologist, and he was fine with doing. I mean, because also the alternative was, do we want to just take the tube? And
Right.
I was not ready for that, and I wanted to avoid that at all cost, which
Right.
was part of the reason they did end up admitting me because they did see some fluid in the pelvic cavity, which was blood. They wanted to be sure that it hadn't burst, so they wanted to do serial, blood work throughout the night just to be sure that my hemoglobin and hematocrit stayed, within the normal range so that they didn't have to take the tube because
Okay.
I really did not want to lose my tube.
Sure. Okay. So that was going to be my question when you ultimately got pregnant naturally. I was like, did this happen with one tube? But you still had both tubes, but still a miracle that you got
Yes.
pregnant naturally. And I, talk to me about the trauma post loss, because pregnancy post loss is its own thing. Were you terrified immediately? Did you feel in your gut like you just knew this one was okay? How did you feel?
A little bit of both. I mean, when I got the positive pregnancy test, I was like, here we go again. I mean, even my husband was like, well, let's not get too excited
Hmm.
because we've had that. I mean, this was all over the course of probably 10 months. We had had so many losses in the ectopic, and we would get so excited just to have that rug pulled out from underneath us and just talk about a roller coaster that you can't get off of. Um, but I was going to allow myself to just enjoy the step that I was in at that moment. I wasn't allowing myself to go past where I was right then. And I had a positive pregnancy test, and it was dark. It
Hmm.
wasn't one of those where it was like squinty, like a squinty.
Hmm.
It was in your face, like, oh my gosh. It was Christmas Eve. I remember that. I was with my
Hmm.
family, and I was going to enjoy it. And I just kind of similar to like going back to the Bachelor, like I was just going to take it at the step that it was. And then I would go to the next step. And then I would go to the next step. And I was trying to compartmentalize the best that I could. And ultimately, we got to the finish line this time.
Amazing. And that's your daughter.
And that is my daughter, Brady. And she will be 2 in a couple weeks.
Amazing. Amazing. And what is the state of your heart at this moment?
fine, complete.
Fine. Wow.
Which is a miracle in and of itself because for a while when we were getting the follow-ups, they were seeing some scar tissue or in the like around the heart in the pericardium, which is the sac, not the heart itself. And you can sometimes that scar tissue can form to where it's hard for the heart to expand, but we continued the follow-up on that, and that's not even visible anymore.
Amazing.
And so very, very glad that there's no long-term effects from the pericarditis.
And theoretically, we still have some embryos on ice.
We do. We
Okay, nice to know. Nice to know. Okay, so now let's get into your other baby, which is Lily Concierge. How was Lily Concierge born?
So throughout my years of being a fertility nurse and so professional experience and then my personal journey, it, both with fertility and also outside of fertility with my health, kind of what I was mentioning, having to advocate for yourself, really trying to push for answers. I realized with fertility, because of the increased demand, the more and more people that are needing care, and really the lack of specialists that we have in this field, it's unbelievable for the amount of people that need to be seen. I mean, I was looking at the stats the other day. I think it's less than 55 REIs come into the
Yes.
field per year.
Yes. I was just going to say, I think it's around 50. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, but the amount of, I mean, it's the market and looking at reproductive healthcare over the past decade and how it's been surging, the supply is not meeting up with the demand.
Yeah.
And it's no one's fault, right? It's just, what are we supposed to do in this? And then we have long wait times. We have people that are resorting to Reddit and Google and WebMD and having to make big time decisions without really the right guidance or support because there's just not enough time.
Right.
There's not enough time. And so it really was, I had worked in the clinical setting for so long and I enjoyed it. But when I was looking forward in my future, I felt there was just more that I could do and that I wanted to do. And especially with this new perspective that I have.
Yeah.
And so Lily came out of the desire and the need to really bridge the gaps, not just with fertility, but into pregnancy and into postpartum, and really continuing that care outside of the clinical setting to help support our clients as they're navigating each of these, entities, um, and be a sounding board, be an advocate, let people know, when it may be time to seek a second opinion. More of an extension of the healthcare system, not a replacement. We are by no means, making decisions for the physicians. We're not physicians. My partner and I have over 40 years of experience in nursing and in healthcare, and we've kind of lived the inside. So it allows us to say, maybe ask this question, maybe look
Mm.
at it this way, or here's how you could talk to your doctor about this. Or, trying to avoid going to the Reddit where we can say, here's a reputable resource for you if this is a concern that you have.
I love this. And I love that it looks at really kind of the whole life cycle, right? Because you even start pre-fertility asking people what their goals are for family building.
Absolutely. And, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So it's being
Right.
proactive about it,
That's
going
everything.
into, some of our clients that we see, they don't know that they want to see an REI yet. They're nervous to see an REI. They don't know what questions to ask. And so by giving them that confidence, it's giving them a little bit more control in a situation that feels so out of our control.
Yes. This is what I always say too. I'm like, I wish I could guarantee you a baby. I can't, but I can guarantee you control in a very out of control situation.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, my dream is that every practice has companies like yours and mine and the
Mhm.
supplemental companies that are not considered supplemental, but that give the women the resource and the advocacy that they need.
Yes. And the
So
ear,
crucial.
the space and the time to listen and to say, hey, I hear you. I hear what your concerns are, and here's what we can do about it.
Exactly. I love it. Okay, I started doing some rapid fire questions. Will you play along with me as
Absolutely.
we end up? Okay, this is boring, but I feel like it just gets people in. Coffee or tea,
Coffee.
beach or mountain?
Oh, this
You could
is
say
tough.
both. You could say both. There's no right answer.
Probably beach.
Okay. A wellness trend that you're actually obsessed with right now.
Ooh, okay, I've got a few. Um, let's see, high protein for sure. Women, we've got to be
Good
intaking a lot
one.
of protein. I feel like that's where it's at, and weightlifting.
Ugh, the two that I need most help with, but I appreciate. I'm also obsessed with them, just not quite hitting my goals. Okay. One thing you never thought you'd be doing, but now love. Probably weightlifting.
Yeah, eating tons of protein and weightlifting.
Exactly.
Uh, running a business. Never thought
Mm,
I'd be doing that. Never thought I could do that. And look at me now.
love that. And lastly, finish this sentence. I feel most like myself when.
I feel most like myself when I'm with my kids.
It's funny when I asked you that question, I pictured you falling over in your jeans and t-shirt in the ballroom, which I think is what made you so human, which is always what everyone ends up loving.
I mean, and you know what? Looking back on it, it probably was just because it was just, I mean, all I could do was laugh. All I could do was laugh. I stood up in the middle of that ballroom and I'm like, here I am. Here I
Right.
am. My
And you're like, you
jeans.
might never see these people again. It turned out differently, but you didn't know.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, it's so crazy to look back over the journey and, graduating nursing school, this young girl so scared, feeling so alone in this crazy world that we live in. And to then fast forward to being a mom of two kids, a wife, um, and working in a field that I absolutely adore and am so passionate about.
I love it. Thank you for doing the work that you're doing. We will, of course, link out to Lily Concierge and to all of your handles. And I'm just so grateful that we've connected and like we've even
Same.
hung out in the suburbs of Chicago. I love it.
Yes, we have, and we need to do it again.
We will, for sure. Thank you so much for being here, Whitney. I adore you.
Thank you.